I think when the World Bank says interesting times, people kind of close the front door. But again, that was a little bit tempting. I'd like to come back to that. But Makar, from ICU, and you've been involved so long in this process, you've seen a lot of winds of change, you've seen a lot of improvement, and you've seen some setbacks close up. What do you think the outlook is now for investors, and where are you seeing real interest, real excitement and dynamism, and where would you like to see a little bit more focus?
Well, I'll start with saying that, and I've shared this view for a very long time. When you sit in this conference and listen to people talking about achievements and the results, it looks very different from what you read in the press. And if you read the press and coverage of events in Ukraine, it's doom and gloom. But in reality, as far as our perception and feelings, things have been improving, and the government or the country has been successfully fighting the uphill battle. In terms of reforms in many sectors, and in terms of building sustainability, and it's difficult to comprehend. But after the events of 2013-14, there was almost no country, and the economy, which all of us, received, inherited, was not sustainable. And the reforms that people at the NBU, other regulators have done, very unpopular, are very difficult to, or shouldn't be underestimated, and especially given the fact that all of these reforms have encountered a number of vested interests that were against that. In terms of investment views and what is interesting, what is not, Ukraine is a part of the global market, and just like everybody else or every other country, has to compete for capital. We heard from in the first panel that even China is trying to raise capital for its Silk Road project. Ukraine in a position where it just reaching economic sustainability, but it has to offer something interesting to people to invest. And I would argue here that the role of the government in creating these opportunities is much more important than ever in other countries. Because the private sector, with where it is right now, with in terms of leverage, in terms of fragmentation, so on and so forth, cannot secure the meaningful level of investments to take the growth levels to the next level. And if you look at basics, then you will realize that investments, be it foreign direct investments or domestic investments, is the only realistic growth engine. So I would encourage the government to take a proactive role in creating investment projects, because at the moment, I would struggle to name an economically viable project where a private investor can put $1 billion. So, not to be abstract, I would say that I would single out agricultural sector, which already accounts for 15% of GDP, and the land reform, which we're discussing for a long time, would be that huge driver for the entire economy, for two reasons. It can be done very quickly in terms of attracting the FDIs, and it would be very meaningful. Just to give you some numbers, Ukraine has between 20 to 25 million hectares of agricultural land. 10 million of that is still owned by the state. The average rents are between $140 and $150 per annum. Using even a cap rate of 10%, you arrive at an implied value of the land at $1,500 per hectare. And this is very conservative. Times 10 million hectares, which are in state ownership, gives you 15 billion. 15 billion is comparable to what IMF has provided in the form of EFF facility. It's more than 2 times larger than the current net reserves of the National Bank of Ukraine. And what is more important is this 15 billion, or so, without counting all the wonderful things, additional follow-on investments, and so on and so forth, can be raised in 3 years or less.
Makar, can you just be precise towards the end about what you say with that, and then
the point is very simple. Ukraine needs investments. Unfortunately, private sector is not in a position to attract meaningful amount of these investments, and the state should help. And this is what is going to drive the growth. This is what will make Ukraine more sustainable. This is what is going to change the cost of funding. This is what will make Ukraine more independent from geopolitical point of view. And I would urge, the current government and the future governments to think very hard about not abstract things, but real things that can be done, which will lead to a noticeable change in a short period of time.
Thank you very much.